This is exercise 2 for week 9. This is a video walkthrough of the multiple interval selection project. In here, we're going to create a application that uses a list with the scroll bar. We're again using our months of the year list with the scroll bar. We are selecting, we are able to select more than one month this time. And when we click the button, those months will be moved into the text box that we see below the list. So in this, we've got, and of course, this text box that we've got is actually a JText area. Those are our multiple line text boxes that we see and that we talked about in class. Let's take a look at the code and see what's going on. Again, the Abstract Window Toolkit events library, the Abstract Window Toolkits library, and the Swing library are all being imported here because we're all using items from those classes. We've got our class name here. We are extending the JFrame. This class is going to be a customized window. In this class, as instance variables, we've got a panel called month panel, a panel called selected month panel, very similar to the last one. We've got a panel called button panel. We've got a list called month list. We've got a list called selected month list. Oh, excuse me, I thought that was a text area. They are both lists. I stand corrected. We've got two scroll panes, one for the first list, one for the second list, and we've got our button that we're going to have. We go ahead again, create our list of months as string items. So we've got January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and November and December, all in our list. In our constructor, of course, we are setting the title of our window to list demo. We are setting the default close operation so that when we click the X in the top right-hand corner of the window closes. We are setting the layout to the Border Layout Manager. Again, the JFrame uses Border Layout Manager by default, but we do like to do this just to remind people when they're looking at our code what Layout Manager we're using. We've got three methods that we've created to build our panels. One for the month panel, one for the selected month panel, one for the button panel. We'll talk about those methods in just a moment. Once those methods are finished, we add our month panel to the north section, our selected month panel to the center section, and our button to the south section, keeping them in a nice line. We call pack. Again, that sizes our windows to fit our components. We call the set visible method to make our window visible to the user. Looking at the methods that put our panels together for us, our month panel, we create a month panel object. We create a month list object. This is going to be the list of months we can select from. We are going to set the selection mode to multiple interval selection so that Java knows we can select more than one item from this list. We are going to set the visible rows in the list to 6, so we see the first 6 months of the year. And we create our scroll pane object so that we can scroll down and see the rest of them. When we create the scroll pane object, we provide it the component that we want scroll bars on as an argument to the constructor. Finally, we add the scroll pane to our panel. Because remember, the control goes in the scroll pane goes in the panel. The one thing I want to point out here is notice we are not handling events from the list box. We're not interested in events from this list box. We have another way to accomplish our goals. Oftentimes, when you're using multiple interval selection, you're not going to want to listen for events because the minute the first item is chosen, the event is going to be thrown. Instead, you're going to want some other maybe a button to confirm that the user is done selecting items from your list. The build selected month panel again creates a selected month JPanel. We create a new list called selected month. We set the visible rows of that list to 6 as well. We create a second scroll pane for this control. Every control must have its own. Every control you want scroll bars on must have its own scroll pane. So you got to have separate scroll pane objects for for every item you want the scroll pane or you want scroll bars on. We add our selected month list to the scroll pane called scroll pane 2. We add scroll pane 2 to our panel. To build our button panel, we create a new panel. We create a new button with the text Get Selections on it. We wire up our buttons for events. We tie our we tie the button to the button listener class that we've created. This is the class that's going to handle the action events that occur when we click the button. We add the button to the panel. For our event handler class, again, we create a private inner class called button listener. It implements the action listener class, which means it must have an action performed method in the body of the class. Remember that takes an action event argument, and in this case, I called it E. So what we're doing here is we are creating an array or a list called selections, and we are storing the selected values of our month list object in our array, in our list called selections. And then, and we talked about this, if we want to add data to a list, we can call the setListData method and provide it the list of data that we want to add. In this case, I'm taking my selections from the month list through the get selected values. Remember, that gets you a list of the values that the user has selected. Those are going to be the highlighted values at the time that you make this call. They're being stored in this list, and so I could just simply call setListData and provide it the variable for that list, and that sets everything up. Again, in this one, because it's a small, about 160-line program, that's not a very big program, we've gone ahead and put a main method right in here just to keep things neat and compact. And of course, that creates an instance of our multiple interval selection class, which is our window. I hope you were able to follow along on this walkthrough of this particular exercise. It's a really good example of how to set list data and how to utilize sort of a best practice for dealing with multiple list or multiple selection list boxes. Anytime you're going to allow the user to make multiple selections, you're probably not going to want to handle the events that are generated by the list themselves, but instead provide a button to the user so that we know when they're done selecting items. It is possible to use the list change events to handle that, but I think this is probably a better way to do it. If you have any questions, of course, you can email me, bsimbeck@ccac.edu, or you can bring up your questions in class and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you for watching.